is day 8 in Bali. I am actually at the entrance to the Campuhan Bridge Walk, and I'm on my way somewhere very international. When you travel the world, you learn there are certain brands that are just everywhere. And one of those brands is Starbucks. I'm about to walk to Starbucks, but I wanted to talk about it first. A lot of people equate Bali with spirituality because there's a lot of spiritual stuff here. Even walking around, you can see it. There are temples and little shrines and statues of gods everywhere. On the street, they put out these little boats. They're not actual boats, but you know, they would probably float if you put them in water, like woven out of wood and banana leaves with flowers and fruit, and sometimes little banana leaves with rice on them, and they burn incense. In Bali, like being spiritual is, or like connected to the spiritual realm, is very normalized. And so I understand why people come here looking for that. I'm a Christian and I've done a lot of traveling in Europe. And in Europe, Christianity is historically the predominant religion, and a lot of the historic buildings are like churches and cathedrals and things built for God, to glorify God, for people to come and worship in. And I knew that coming to Asia, it was going to be different. And I've definitely felt that along the way. My first country in Asia that I went to was Thailand. Walking into the Royal Palace in Bangkok, which is built as a palace but also as a temple, and just adorned with Buddhist paintings and images, and it was beautiful. But I definitely felt like this is not made to glorify my God, the God of the Bible. And it was a different experience than walking into a church in Europe. Here in Bali, it's not just the temples and the shrines, it's also like crystal shops and yoga studios that are diving into that type of spirituality. And it's very normalized and very accessible for anyone to kind of partake in that. And I think that's why people come to Bali on these spiritual retreats, because it is a place where like spirituality is valued. So as a Christian traveling in Asia, I definitely came in with a cautious attitude. Like, I knew that there was going to be spiritual darkness here, and I've definitely been very aware of what I'm doing, where I'm going, and what situations I'm putting myself in. In Thailand, I felt the spiritual darkness in the air, whereas here it more feels like it's gripped tight. In Thailand, I would go walking and just pray protection over myself in some places, because I could just feel the dark spiritual around me. Whereas here, that hasn't really happened yet. Like, it feels like there is spiritual darkness, but it's more like clutching people and places and things here. And it is really jarring to see people come here to consume spirituality and like get their little Buddha figurine and their incense to burn at home to bring calmness or a different energy, or make themselves feel better or feel connected to the spirit world. But even just on my walk, I walk past so many things where they're burning incense, and it's a lot here. I think it's definitely a wise thing to come in to traveling to a country where they do have a different belief system just ingrained in their culture, you know, with caution. It might not seem like that big of a deal, but the Bible is very clear. You know, I believe in God. I believe he sent his son Jesus to live a perfect life, die on a cross for my sin, and rose again to defeat death. And because God is my God, that means that I am not looking for other sources of spiritual truth. There aren't any, because God is a source of spiritual truth, but I'm not looking for other sources because God is my source. And I think society waters it down a lot and is like, oh, well, I prayed about it, but also I burned sage and incense and, you know, I rubbed my Buddha belly. And they think that that is better. And it's this idea that like trying more than one thing is better because then, you know, you'll get more answers. But really, if you believe that God is your source and God is God and God made everything and has everything in his control, then you need to only ask God and only go to God, and that's it. That's what trusting God is. It's actually treating him like God, treating him like the only God, and not looking to anything else to solve your problems. Part of the reason why this is so important is because there are other spiritual things in the spiritual realm. Like, I'm not saying that there aren't. If you read the Bible, you see that sorceresses are mentioned, magicians are mentioned. When Moses goes to leave Egypt, the magicians were mimicking the works, the miracles, you know, some of them. After Samuel died, Saul went to consult a medium to talk to Samuel from the dead. All of that spiritual stuff, like, is talked about in the Bible. It's not saying that it doesn't exist. It's saying that that's not God, that's not God's way, and that's not the right way. When Lucifer fell, he took a third of the angels with him. There are other spiritual forces in existence besides God, but God is the truth and the way and the light. And so that's why being here in Bali is such a reminder that, like, you have to choose God. It's not because God is the only spiritual being out there. It's because he is the true spiritual being. He's the maker of everything, the king of kings, the king over everything. And if you go searching for other sources of spiritual power, you'll find them because they exist. They're just not God. So when I travel, I am very aware of what I am putting my money towards. Part of it is from working in the hospitality industry, but like whatever you pay money towards is, I'm turning around, traffic is way too loud on that road. Whatever you put money towards is supporting that business. So I'm in Asia. I have gone to see a few temples and things, but I am very aware that when I pay admission to get into a temple, that is financially supporting that temple. And I really value temples as, you know, like relics of the past, places where people worship. Like, all of that is valuable and good. However, that doesn't mean that it's something that I believe in. It doesn't mean it's somewhere I practice worship, and that doesn't mean it's somewhere that I want to financially support. This is just personal thoughts, my personal opinion. It's something that I've come into traveling Asia with this awareness, which I think is important to talk about. So I'm on my way to Starbucks, and this Starbucks has the really cool location that it is right next to the water temple in central Ubud here. That is one place I have not been. It's kind of on the tourist list to do of the town, because honestly, going to a temple is not at the top of my priorities. Let me make it really clear. I really respect other people's religions. I really respect other people practicing different religions. I respect that people have different beliefs than me. This is me speaking about how I choose my steps in cultures that aren't mine. And it's a response to people coming to places like this and just consuming and doing sound baths and doing yoga and, you know, buying little figurines of different gods that mean different things. People can do whatever they want, but this is how I navigate this kind of situation. Part of being a Christian is purity, and that includes spiritual purity, which means that you're not looking to other sources for spiritual truth. It also includes the 10 Commandments, like you shall have no other gods before me, which means like anything from looking for answers from a different spiritual being than God, all the way down to like not relying on money to solve your problems, because God is the problem solver, not money. And by idolizing money, you're doing the same thing. So anyways, I'm going to this Starbucks, and it is built right next to the water temple here in Ubud, and I think it'll be cool to see. However, I don't think I'm going to pay money to get inside this one. Is another water temple on Bali that I am planning on going to, because it is cool architecture and it is cool to see how other religions practice. I think it's fascinating and also can be beautiful. But as a Christian traveling in Asia, in a country that is just has a lot of Buddhist temples and imagery just around in the background of my videos, I felt like it was something I wanted to talk about, because it really is a big deal to look for other spiritual sources rather than God if you say that God is your source. Right now, society is trying to negotiate what truth is, but you can't negotiate truth. There's this glorious part of faith and your relationship with God that opens up when you start to only rely on Him. God doesn't fail, and if you let Him, He'll transform your life. It's really easy to get impatient that it doesn't look like provision is coming, things aren't happening, you need something, and it doesn't feel like God responds. And it seems easier to just take it into your own hands and do it yourself and make it happen yourself. Don't fall for that. Don't decide that God is not going to show up. Things don't always look or happen or pan out the way we want them to, but don't give up on God. God is a redeemer and a provider and always victorious. Doesn't mean it'll be easy, because honestly, being a Christian normally means it's way harder. Live life with everything it throws at you, on top of holding yourself to God's standard set out in the Bible. And God is a jealous God, which means it's a really big deal to seek spiritual guidance from sources that are not God. If you read your Bible, you know having trust and having faith means having trust and faith that God is who He says He is, and He's going to show up and He's going to come through. And listening to culture say that trying different spiritual things isn't a big deal and will even increase your chances of getting a response is the wrong way to go about it. It's not wise to try a bunch of spiritual things hoping for answers. Being in Bali, you're just surrounded by options of different spiritual things to try, but that does not make it a good idea. You're better off betting 100% on God than splitting up trying to increase your odds. I went to Starbucks. They did not have lemon loaf. I don't know if it's all of Indonesia or just the Ubud one, but they did not have lemon loaf. Sad. The view of the temple was okay. It wasn't great, but that's all I'm going to give that. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you tomorrow.